Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a list of some summer recommendations. I always think of a few different things when I think of summer, and I try to center these book recommendations around that general feel. So when I think summer, I tend to think big summer blockbusters, big action movies. I think people going to the beach or the lake or the pool, drinking yummy smoothies. So the books are all kind of a mix of different things, so that hopefully whatever general feel summer gives you, hopefully one of these books will fit that. I also have a variety of genres and age ranges on this list, but before jumping into it, I know not everybody is approaching summer, so I'm very curious, where do you live? What is the weather like where you're at? For me, obviously summer is approaching, and I live in one of the hottest parts of the world. And just really quick, I'm always complaining about the heat, but I just wanted to show you that this is the weather forecast. We have the highs up to 115 this week. Literally at the time I'm recording, it is 109 degrees outside, so if you ever want to come to Phoenix, now is not the time. Jumping into the list though, I'm going to start with a manga series. I think this is great. One, because it has a big cast of characters, the story gets really intense, very epic, and there is a fantastic anime that goes along with it. There's actually two. Some of you already know what that's going to be, and that would be Fullmetal Alchemist. So if you do want to watch the anime, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is the one that follows this directly, more so than the other. So it had a kind of Game of Thrones situation where this was not done being written when the show was coming out. So the first Fullmetal Alchemist was a little bit different toward the end, whereas Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood came out after these were all released, and so it follows it more directly. This follows two brothers as well as a bunch of other characters, but our main two characters, Edward and Alphonse, they lost their mother and they tried to bring her back using alchemy, and things went terribly wrong. So we have Edward, who has lost an arm and a leg, and his brother lost his entire body, and the only way he is still living is that his soul was attached to an object, and the object it was attached to was a suit of armor. And so these two are trying to figure out how to restore their bodies after making this terrible mistake as young children, and they end up joining kind of the military. So you also get a lot of military politics in a sense, and you start to see some corruption. The degree of good and evil in this is fantastic because you have some people that are a little more morally gray. You have our sweet, lovely heroes, even they're flawed, and you get these really heartwarming moments with them. And then you have characters that are like ultimate evil, but there's everything along the way. It's also extremely funny. I love Fullmetal Alchemist so much. Next up, we have a recent read of mine. This is the densest book on this list, but it's definitely great if you are a big fan of fantasy, and that would be Malice by Gwynne. The primary reason that I have it on this list is because there is a lot of action in this. Typically, something that is this epic in scope, I would be hesitant to recommend for summer because I think people are looking more for those fun, quick type of reads. But this isn't dense because of the writing style. It's just long and there's a lot of characters, but I actually think that serves summer very well for a lot of people because summer vacation might allow you a little bit more time. Maybe you have the time now to get into these bigger series that you've been holding off because of work or school. The setup for the story is that we kind of have a backdrop, a prophecy of ultimate good, ultimate evil that are supposed to come back. We're supposed to have a chosen one essentially for both sides, and you don't know who those people are going to be because you follow a large cast of characters and you're kind of being introduced to these different people. Next up is one that I think so perfectly fits that feeling of going to the beach, of being around the water. It has that setting, and that would be All the Stars and Teeth, and then it has a sequel called All the Tides of Fate. So this is a story that it's not reinventing the wheel. It's not the most unique thing when it comes to its premise. We follow somebody who is the heir to the throne, and they have this magic that they're supposed to use to prove that they are capable of taking the throne, and their kingdom kind of rules over all these different islands, but something goes terribly wrong on the day they're supposed to prove themselves, and now they have to go on this seafaring adventure. And what I think makes it stand out, despite having that familiar setup, is that the setting really is so vivid and vibrant. It just feels so alive, and I think that if you're somebody who likes the idea of a story that takes place with islands and the ocean and some of those mythological creatures that are associated with those things. This one I think will definitely be right up your alley. Next up, we have a YA contemporary silly love story, and that would be Geekerella. So typically I think of fairy tale retellings more so for the fall and winter, but this one I just think fits summer so well. We have this girl who, it's a Cinderella retelling, so she's living with her evil stepmom and stepsisters, and she's super nerdy, and she loves to death this one TV show that's kind of like Star Trek, and she writes this blog. She's obsessed with it. It's kind of all she has going for her. And there's supposed to be a reboot of the show, and the person that they cast, she absolutely hates. She thinks they're just some new pretty boy who everybody's hot on, and she can't stand him, and she writes all about it in this blog. And then it turns out that this actor sees this blog, but he has no idea who she is, and they end up in a very interesting set of circumstances, getting each other's contact info and communicating via text, not knowing who the other person is. And it's a little bit of a love story, but also you see his side of things, so we have this dual perspective, and his life maybe isn't as perfect and cookie cutter as it seems. It's very adorable. There's a lot of silly references in it. I think it's great if you're somebody who's looking for something super precious, super just, you can eat it up in a sitting, and also if you yourself feel that you're a bit nerdy, the fandom culture that's touched on in the story I think is very relatable. Next up, I more so want to recommend Best Served Cold, but I feel like I also kind of have to recommend the First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. So the way it works, if you're unfamiliar, is the First Law Trilogy takes place first, and you do not have to read it before picking up Best Served Cold, but chronologically this does come after, and there are some references to things from the original trilogy. I wouldn't say it necessarily spoils the original trilogy, but you'll miss those references if you pick this one up first. But either way, First Law is definitely got a lot of action in it as well, and it's kind of like cheeky violence because the story, I think there's actually a lot of witty humor throughout. It is grim dark, so it's a darker setup. It's very character driven. You just kind of follow a lot of what I'm going to call anti-heroes to villain type characters, but it's highly entertaining to follow them. But Best Served Cold, the reason I think this fits so well for summer is it is your classic revenge story. This, if I understand correctly, was kind of inspired by an actual revenge movie, and so it follows a lot of those same beats that you're familiar with if you sit down to watch a revenge story. We follow a character named Monza, who was very loyal to a certain individual, and that person kind of crosses her and leaves her to die. But she survives, and then now she's doing everything she can to get a merry band of misfits, but maybe not so merry, together to try and get her revenge. And you see that kind of stereotypical, is the revenge really worth it in the end? Except for in typical Abercrombie fashion, he kind of plays around with the tropes in some unexpected ways. But either way, I thought this was highly entertaining from start to finish. I had such a good time with it. I really enjoyed the characters, even though I often hated the characters. That's something Joe Abercrombie does really well. But yes, Best Served Cold, perfect revenge story for summer. Next up is a book that is technically sold in young adult, but I actually think it could be read by middle grade readers as well, or if somebody is a fan of middle grade, and that would be Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. So this is a sci-fi story that follows a young girl named Spensa. She's a teenager who's kind of trying to find her place. She overcompensates for a lot of the hurt that she's experienced in life by being very feisty and defensive, and her character arc throughout the story is fantastic. But the setting is that we are on another planet that is constantly being attacked by aliens, so there's a huge emphasis in this society on their pilots. Their pilots are what protect them from these aliens, and Spence's father famously abandoned. So everybody sees her father as a coward. They also then see her as the daughter of a coward, but she still has dreams of becoming a pilot herself and has to overcome so many obstacles and hurdles to try and attain this dream. And Sanderson does not pull any punches, even though this is intended for a younger audience and of course can be enjoyed by an older one. Sometimes there's this expectation that the stakes won't be very high, that the action scenes will be really predictable, that there's nothing bad that's going to happen to anybody and everything will be cheery. And he does not hold back. So there are definitely a lot of moments that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. And they're really hard hitting. Like I said, Spence's arc throughout the story is phenomenal. But another aspect of this book that I think is great is the camaraderie and almost a found family with the other people who are also wanting to become pilots and protect their planet. Definitely fantastic if you are looking for a great, but maybe a little bit easier to get into, action-packed sci-fi story. Switching gears and going to ultimate preciousness, and that would be Love and Gelato. This is very cute, very wholesome. We follow what is initially a quite sad setup. We have a character who lost her mother. It was a single mother raising the daughter, and she passes away at the beginning of the book, and now the daughter is living with this man that may or may not be her father. He lives in Italy. Her mother has nothing but good things to say about him. And the girl is trying to adjust to life without her mother, to living with this man that she knows really nothing about, but their relationship throughout the story, it's so nice to see the way that it develops. But on top of that, we see a character, she's trying to become a little bit more social, embrace her new life, and while tackling grief, she's also trying to find happiness and a new way forward for herself, and she meets a boy, and their relationship's really cute. But as this love story is unfolding between her and this boy, she also finds some journals of her mother's from when her mother was younger and had met this man that may or may not be her father. So you're getting this love story between the mother and this man, as well as a potential love story between this young girl and an Italian boy that she meets while living in Italy, and they get gelato sometimes, and it's adorable. A different series that'll hit you in the feels, but maybe perhaps different feelings will be struck, would be Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is a fantastic action-packed sci-fi story. So where Skyward is a little bit more for, I would say, a younger audience, or at least it's maybe not as intense and dark and violent, Red Rising is. It's all the above. It's very intense. It's very dark. It's very violent. We follow a man named Darrow, who is a part of an oppressed class of people known as the Reds. The society has broken up people into different color castes, and so he is pretty much at the bottom. He is looked down upon, but he doesn't love that, but he just wants to live his life and make do with what he has available to him. But some other individuals are not happy with the situation. They want to break the color system down, and they see Darrow as the perfect person to help them make this happen. And so we see this infiltration occur. The first book is often compared to the Hunger Games, but then moving forward, it deviates very much so. The reason it's compared to that is because of this fight to the death type of school where everybody's very brutal. It's not the exact same plot line, but it has some similarities. But then once you get past that, it really very much becomes commentary on the political system, how societies work. Pierce Brown is very much influenced by Greek-Roman history, which you will see when you pick this up. So if you're looking for a little bit more of a grown-up sci-fi story that's very violent, but also very action-packed, this is the one to go with. If you need something super cute that is perhaps not a contemporary, I highly recommend Blade of Secrets. Similar to Malice, this is another one that I picked up recently. Trisha Levenseller, I've read a few different books by them. Warrior of the Wild, Shadows Between Us. Those are also very highly entertaining. But this one, it just feels perfect for summer. It's a traveling story. We follow a character who has magical abilities, and she specifically has magical abilities when it comes to creating weapons, but there is somebody who wants to use one of her magic weapons for evil purposes. And so with nothing else to do, no other choices, our character has to flee, go on the run, and try to escape this person and never let her weapons go into this person's hands. They have a sister who they are very close to who is accompanying them, and then they also hire a mercenary and then some other random guy who tags along, and it's just so fun. It sounds like it would be really intense, but also I feel like Trisha Levenseller absolutely embraces the YA feel. So if you're somebody who just is looking for that classic, it's maybe a tad predictable, but maybe there's some twists and turns. It's fast-paced. You always want to turn the page, and then there's also maybe a romance in there too. I feel like this absolutely fits it. On top of that, the sister relationship I think was done exceptionally well. They argued they were bitter towards each other sometimes, but also ultimately they loved each other with their entire entire hearts. They're very protective of one another, but they're also very different people. Our main character is somebody who has extreme anxiety, so I think that that was really fantastic to see in a book, especially having the hero of the story be somebody who has a lot of anxiety. I really appreciated that in the story. Overall, just like the other Trisha Levenseller books, this one is just so much fun. Last on the list, there's 2 books that I always end up recommending on recommendations lists. One of them is Warbreaker that I held off. I did not recommend Warbreaker today, although that one's also good for summer. But the other one would be Vicious by V. Schwab. So Vicious and its sequel Vengeful, I just think are so universally appealing to so many different people because it's not too hard on the sci-fi fantasy aspects that it's going to lose some people. It's not so rooted in our own world that it's no longer appealing to people who appreciate fantasy and sci-fi. It's just the perfect mix, and it's dark and twisted and a little bit eerie. So we follow these 2 main characters. I'm sure many of you have heard. If you haven't heard me talk about it, you've probably heard it talked about before, but we follow these 2 main characters who hate each other, but they used to be best friends, and you don't know how they got to this point, and you have a fractured timeline where you're bouncing around to different points. Sometimes it's a day before the event, or sometimes it's 20 minutes before, and then sometimes it's 5 years ago, and so you're jumping around all over the place. It seems like it would be disorienting. It's not. It's crafted masterfully. The best way I can describe it, it's like if you were working on a puzzle and you had some pieces over here, and then you've got the edge pieces that you're trying to put together, and then you've got like the sky over here, and then this castle over here, and you're just kind of putting it all together, and eventually it'll all fit. That's what this story feels like. I love it. I think it's highly entertaining, and there's also an aspect of it that is somewhat kind of like X-Men, because they have the thing that occurs where if they die but are brought back really quick, so for example, if somebody was drowning but then they were able to get them breathing again, that sort of thing, then sometimes people can come back with powers. These powers are associated in some way with how they died or what they were thinking when they died, so all the powers are very unique, but this is not knowledge that is known to most people. It's kind of a secret. So there's also that aspect of the story layered in. I love it. It's so wicked. The characters are all pretty terrible, but it's kind of fun to see terrible people go after each other. There are so many other books that I could recommend for summer, but I wanted to keep it to these 10. Definitely let me know what your summer recommendations would be. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.